Hey guys, welcome back to the Interact Post. Today's video will be a continuation of the information we've gathered this past week concerning leaks related to Genshin Impact, with Chevreuse in particular. Once again, we do want to say that all the information we have found you can also find yourself. We are not beta testers and have no inside information. We will be using various sources that everyone else has access to. Now, with all of that out of the way, on to the video.
Now, looking beyond Navia, we are going to be also talking about Chevreuse and her kit. Same thing, we got a lot more about her actual kit, besides the idea of, oh, she does overload and helps. Now we're going to be looking at specifically how. So she is going to be a polearm user, although she is always seen with a gun. So she does not, there's no new archetype of weapon. She's still going to be a polearm user, but she is going to be having a special E or a skill like Navia. Navia's skill, it seemed like, at least from everything that you guys can at least see as well, it seemed like it was pretty short range. It wasn't extremely far, and so that might be something as well. You know, she is a Claymore user. She kind of keeps things close. That you're going to be running around in her burst, kind of smacking things, getting as close as possible, especially with her skill, which is great, but at the same time, Chevreuse does things a little bit differently. It seems like she has a pretty far-ranged weapon in her skill that she takes a shot with. So very similar also to Navia, how you can hold the skill and aim with the skill. It's the same thing with Chevreuse. And Chevreuse basically has a musket that she fires at opponents, dealing AoE pyro damage. And you can also hold and go into that aiming mode that I was talking about. At this point, if Chevreuse has an overcharged ball, she will fire the overcharged ball instead of a regular shot, dealing greater pyro damage and making it into a larger area. Chevreuse gains one overcharged ball every time a nearby character in the party triggers an overloaded reaction, and that can happen one overcharged ball at a time. So, from what it seems here, it seems at least that you're going to be creating an overload reaction, maybe just using her burst. It seems like, we'll talk about that in a second, her burst, very similar to Navia, a lot of pyro application. Navia was geo application. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of application going on, and here it seems like you're going to be using your skill to do a lot of damage and as well heal. For a short duration after Chevreuse fires a shot, she will continuously restore HP to the active character on the field. The amount that is healed is based on her max HP, so it seems like she's going to be a healer as well, which I did not see whatsoever. That came out of left field for me.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited about that because it's going to be the first option as a pyro healer that we've had since Bennett. And nothing against Bennett, it's just going to be a little bit more, for me, I don't know how to say this without sounding negative, but like tired of using Bennett in a sense all the time when I'm like, okay, when I'm building a team, okay, now I need a healer. I need pyro application. Okay, well, Bennett. But I'm like, every time I come to that, I'm like, I wish I had a pyro healer that's not Bennett. And this is kind of an answer to that.
I don't think that she necessarily, and I know you don't think this, but I think necessarily she's not going to be on par or the same level as Bennett, but I do think that she's going to be helping a lot, especially with the maybe small intermittent help of HP over time. It seems like with her HP regeneration over time, and it's a 12-second healing duration, it seems like it goes on for a very long time, maybe happening every second to 2 seconds. It seems like it's going to be, 1,000 to 2,000 HP bumps every single time, which isn't necessarily Bennett heals, but it is going to be helping a lot of the HP increase, HP decrease that Fontaine kind of focuses on a lot.
Which I think is kind of better in a sense because a lot of those, it's not based on a percentage of HP change, kind of like Farina, but instead it's more or less when that HP change happens, right? So with those smaller heals, happening faster is going to influence a lot of those HP changing mechanics a lot sooner than someone like Bennett would, because Bennett's just going to give you a very chunky heal and then stop once you hit that 70% margin.
Exactly, and I think that's going to be changing a lot of what's been going on with how we look at pyro healers like you were talking about. Her Archie is going to be aligned with Usia, which that's great to just have another Usia character like we were talking about. Having some more characters is great. And then her burst is going to be using an explosive grenade that she shoots with her musket, and that's going to be dealing AoE pyro damage. Like I talked about earlier, after that projectile hits, it will split into many secondary explosive shells that will just explode out and deal a bunch of short interval pyro damage to nearby opponents in the area. Seems like a lot of extra pyro application like I was talking about. So that could be really, really good. And it seems like also she has a very low energy cost, very similar to Navia. Very nice to have, to just have a lot of good application. Plus, she's a healer, low energy cost burst. A lot of things are looking even better to just have her on a team. So I think it's really, really good to see what's been going on. We think that her first passive talent is going to be stated like this. When the elemental type of all party members is Pyro or Electro, and there is at least one Pyro and one Electro elemental type in each party, Chevreuse grants coordinated tactics to every character in the party. After a character triggers the overloaded reaction on an opponent, there's the overload again, the Pyro and Electro resistance of that opponent that was hit will be decreased by 40% for 6 whole seconds. Once again, going into the amount of overload help. So she gets an overcharged ball, which helps her do more damage on her skill. Here we see that if anybody creates an overloaded reaction, anyone at all, the Pyro and Electro resistance of that opponent will be decreased, which could help more Pyro and Electro characters. Now, you do have to remember that all party members have to be Pyro or Electro. You can't have Geo, you can't have Animo, you can't have anything else. It has to be Pyro and Electro on the team. All of it. So, this does really focus on having double Pyro, double Electro, triple Electro, one Pyro, triple Pyro, one Electro. Either way, I think probably what's best is 2 and 2 to just get the good resonances. Extra attack, never bad for Pyro characters.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And then the double Electro, low energy cost burst, plus, the double Electro resonance helps you get energy back quicker. So there's no problem really here at all. And I'm really, really excited for her because I've been waiting so long for Overload to actually be a good reaction. And I think it's going to be changing a lot of how Pyro characters are seen, even before Natlan has shown up, which I'm really excited for.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You kind of mentioned with double resonance for Pyro, we were just talking about how both Chevreuse and Bennett are your Pyro healers at this point when Chevreuse does release. You could build Chevreuse for full damage. Don't build her like too far for just thinking about healing, so don't use a healing bonus. Just go HP. To build her HP as high as possible because that's what she's scaling on. Not so she can heal, but that's for her damage because that's probably what she's going to scale off of. If she doesn't, she's probably going to scale off of an attack for the damage, like in her burst hit, because her burst hit does seem to be a nice hit. So maybe just building her for burst damage, and then just using Bennett as a dedicated healer. You've got your healer, you've got your Pyro resonance, and Chevreuse is going to help your other two, whatever electric characters you're going to use at that point.
Right, and I think she's even more of a setup for Arlecchino in the future. Looking at how Arlecchino is probably, we're going to be thinking of using a lot of overload reaction, I think she's going to be the setup beforehand, the 4-star beforehand for Arlecchino. I think it's going to be really, really great to see what she can do with her. At the same time, even, never mind that, this could completely switch up how we see a lot of Pyro characters, Diluc, Hu Tao, even some Electro characters, Ketching and Raiden. There are so many other characters to just create these reactions that are DPSs, Razor, whatever you want to go after. It's going to change a lot of like how the overload reaction is looked at just because of this one character. Now, I don't think that it's going to be putting out Hu Tao 300k vaporizes, but I definitely think that it's going to be changing at least how we look at it, and it's going to make the game a little bit more fun to change how we look at things.
Yeah.
Do a little bit something different.
It'll be fun to explore what different things can we do now that maybe we couldn't have done before.
A lot of late game players have always been complaining about how there's not enough new content or whatever in the game, and I think these types of changes, Geo being able to be used with multiple different elements and it not be a hindrance to their kit, Overload actually being viable for once, and never mind looking at the constellation, I do want to bring up one afterwards, but this is just an amazing jump as well to see how Overload can actually be an okay reaction to use. Looking at her second passive talent, after Chevreuse uses or fires the overcharge ball that she gets from anybody creating an overloaded reaction from her skill, nearby Pyro and Electro characters in the party gain 1% increased attack for every 1000 max HP Chevreuse has for 30 whole seconds. And you can get 40% attack this way, which means you can get Chevreuse up to 40,000 HP, and she starts at level 90 at like almost 12k HP, which is really good for a 4-star.
Yeah.
And she ascends into HP as well, so keep that in mind. She's going to be increasing 40% more attack to just party members in general. Never mind the 25% that you might get from a bonus. Never mind Bennett's bonus that if you put him down in the burst like you were talking about earlier. There is just so much going on here, it's not even funny anymore because you're stacking even more for other characters. Which once again brings me to actually her C6, which a lot of you may not be pulling necessarily on the first half of the banner, which is where we think she's going to be, instead of, on Navia, which is I'm a little sad by because I would love to get a C6. That'd be awesome. But you're probably going to be pulling a little bit on the first half maybe to get her and then waiting for Navia, like I am. But her C6 says that after 12 seconds of that healing effect from her skill, all nearby party members recover HP equivalent to 10% of Chevreuse's max HP. Another great just healing factor in general, even just focused on, even if you don't have an amazing HP on her, it's just more help to heal. Also, and here's the big thing that I love here, is that after a party member is healed by that entire duration or whatever, just in general, if it's a party member's healed once, they gain a 20% pyro damage bonus and electro damage bonus for 8 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. This is 60% more pyro damage bonus and 60% more electro damage bonus after getting healed 3 times by Chevreuse from her skill.
Yeah, it's pretty broken.
I mean, if you look at this, this is a 40% pyro and electro resistance decrease on enemy opponents for 6 seconds, a 40% up to a 40% attack increase from her second passive talent, and a 60% pyro damage bonus and a 60% electro damage bonus for 8 seconds.
It's absolutely crazy. If you put your 2 passives together in that 6th constellation, the amount of buffing that she's giving to either your pyro or electro DPS is kind of insane.
Exactly, and I think that's just going to change a lot of... Once again, C6s on 4-star characters even are extremely good, mainly because they're pretty difficult to get, you know.
Yeah, especially as of late. In the past year, they've been making a lot of the, final constellations on the 4 stars be something that's just game-changing.
Right. I mean, even going back even to the beginning of the game, when we had Barbara, getting a C6 Barbara was like, that's cool. Because you could, revive a character that died because you're an idiot and didn't know how to dodge. But I'm not an idiot anymore and actually know how to dodge. So the thing that I think I'm looking for here is there's a lot more that we're seeing with her kit, totally game-changing. A lot that we saw with Navia, a lot that we saw with Chevreuse. So finally looking at the last bit, and this isn't really a big thing. We haven't really gotten too much information, but we do want to go over Cloud Retainer's kit, at least a little bit of what we saw. So Cloud Retainer is going to be a 5-star Animo Catalyst. A little bit of HP, nothing too crazy at level 90. Has some good base attack, has some, good stuff like that. And she's going to be sending into attack, which makes me think that she has something else to do maybe besides healing. So we'll have to see a little bit more about that later. What I'm thinking, at least for her, is that maybe with this huge base attack buff and with her weapon probably scaling even more into attack that we're seeing, and getting these huge buffs and giving more attack to other party members and giving more energy to herself and to party members, there's going to be a lot more that you were talking about, at least buffing more with attack. At this point, I have no clue whether or not she's going to be a healer, whether or not she's actually just going to be a good damage dealer, if you're a decent user off field. I'd really like to see that, though. That'd be kind of cool, kind of like a very similar to Venti vibe. Now looking into her elemental skill, it seems like she's going to be transforming into a crane, and she'll be able to fly, and we see that she's going to be probably going longer or doing something different than Wanderer. But it seems kind of crazy because when she casts this skill, Cloud Retainer will gain 5 points of Cloud Immortal power. When performing a normal attack while she's flying in this state, you can consume 1 point of Cloud Immortal power to perform a certain attack called Gathering Wind and Earning Flames, which deals anemo damage that is considered a normal attack, which that makes me think she might be good for a 4-piece Maréchal C, and here's why in a second. Those attacks have a 50% base crit rate, and you were talking about how earlier her base, is that including the base 5%, so does that include, 50% plus, I don't know if it'll increase that 5%, but, that means that all the artifact stuff that you have on her, does that increase her up to 50%? And then if you have 15%, does that mean she has a 65% on her normal attacks?
Right.
It's really, really good, if anything, in my personal opinion. And at that point, then, does that mean that you have to build crit rate on her at all if you're not really trying to focus on burst hits? If you're just trying to go skill and then go right into normal attacks? And you can't even do charged or plunging, so there's no point in worrying about that. So here, it seems like that's kind of cool, but also while doing these attacks, when you hit an enemy, if Cloud Retainer's current HP is higher than 50%, Cloud Retainer will also consume a portion of her HP and increase the damage of those normal attacks that she does. So, Maréchal C already giving you up to 36% more crit rate when you decrease or increase your HP, which here it's going to be decreasing her HP when she's higher than 50%. Increasing her, the 2-piece from Maréchal C increases normal and charge attack damage. You're helping your normal attack damage by 15%. it seems like just another set for her to use, and in general, just once again follows a long line of this Fontaine increase decrease HP thing, which is kind of weird considering she's a leeway character, at least, an Adepti in leeway.
Yeah, that's true. And to kind of bounce off of that, if that base crit rate of 50% that's in her skill stacks with the crit rate stat you already have on her, if you're using Marshal C with her, you have your base 5% that every character starts with. You have the base 50% while you're in the skill state, so that puts you at 55. And then if you stack that 36%, you're at 91% crit rate without any substats, without a crit rate circlet, just from using that set and the way her kit works. So it makes me think you want to go full crit damage and attack percent in her substats, and then maybe some things like ER and Elemental Mastery for some extra damage from any swirl reactions you get, and also just getting her burst back.
Also, while in that crane state that she has, it seems like she has a few different traits that she can do. When moving, she can change the angle of raising or lowering in the air by adjusting her camera angle, which is kind of cool. You can like look up or down, and I'm not sure how that's going to work between keyboard and mouse, and actually looking at how it's going to work in controller or on mobile.
I wonder if that's anything like the swimming mechanic already is. Is it going to feel kind of like that, but just, obviously outside of the water? Maybe
possibly,
with
yeah.
Just going up and down, because I think being able to manually levitate downwards is new, because if you think of every single character that has some kind of aerial maneuver, Wanderer, Zhao, Kazuha, there's no kind of downward movement on purpose that you can control and then go right back up from it. It's usually just Kazuha, you can kind of go up in the air a little, that's it. Zhao's is completely sideways or plunging. And Wanderer's like you can go sideways or up, but you can't actually go back down if you levitate with Wanderer. You just have to come out of the skill state.
And it'd be the same thing with something like Venti, where he pops himself up in the air with his hold skill.
Exactly.
So I think, yeah, that's probably fair considering she can go up and down. It's kind of a different change of pace. Next as well, she's going to be able to actually sprint in the air. I know a lot of people think that, with these types of skills or whatever, I'll just cancel by dashing. Well, here you're just going to actually be able to go faster, kind of like Wanderer. That dashing state, you can probably just sprint and go faster. And then when holding your sprint or just going faster, she'll quickly move in the air instead of that actual sprint, instead of that actual dash. Also keep in mind, for each point of that Cloud Immortal power consumed during that crane state, Cloud Retainer will restore 2 energy. So it seems like she can gather, if she's got 5 points of this, and there's no other way for her to actually get more energy or for her to get more points. It seems like after this state is done, you can use up all of the points and then get 10 energy back. And if she's got a low energy cost burst, even if it's high at this point, 10 energy is pretty good for just without anything else. She's just giving it back to herself.
For sure. So I guess at this point in time, we don't actually see anything in her kit as of right now that actually has to do with healing other characters.
No.
She seems more now like a straight up Animo DPS.
I think it's going to be a Animo DPS / an Animo sub DPS that can really change how we look at, someone like Wanderer or whatever. And I think Wanderer, from at least his kit, has so much going for him. It's going to take a lot for a lot of people to think to go after Cloud Retainer instead. Although that, the people are just going to want to pull for waifus. But besides that, legitimately, there's almost no point that...
Half of our audience is Cloud Retainer over Wanderer because waifu over meta.
That is basically how it usually goes. But at this point, it's kind of maybe changing the game and seeing how different things can change. Wanderer was a huge change to how Animo was looked at. At least how you saw it was, okay, we've got Kazuha and we've got Venti and Sucrose, Sayu, and I don't know if Sayu was out at that point, and Jean, where, okay, we just create a bunch of reactions. That's how we do our damage. This is how we work. Then Zhao came along and just pure Animo damage. That's it. I don't care about anything else. I just care about pure Animo damage. And so at that point, then, it was looking at Wanderer when he came out was combining both. Zhao doesn't have anything great to use with Elemental Mastery to increase his damage numbers because he only creates the initial Animo hit. The other characters only care about mainly Elemental Mastery most of the time and whatever they help buff them. But besides that, there's no character that's kind of fused them together.
Yeah.
And that's what Wanderer kind of did.
Yeah, Wanderer, in a sense, kind of just abstractly speaking here, Wanderer did to Animo what I feel like Navia is going to do for Geo.
I completely agree. I think he combined both uses of how Animo was already being used together. Navi is going to be creating a great way for people to do more than just what's set in stone already, which is exactly what Wanderer did. I totally agree.
Yeah, by using those other elemental characters to get up just straight up more attack, more crit rate, longer duration, or more energy.
Right, and this just makes me think, what is MiHoYo thinking to get Cloud Retainer to do to change the game in the future for Animo characters, especially for Animo DPSs?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, but I think that does cover everything. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
There's nothing else that we have been going on, but we do want to say make sure you guys like and subscribe, and we do have a Discord already out if you guys would like to interact with us a little bit better or on a more personal level as well. We'll try to be as there as possible as we can. But besides that, we've got nothing else for you guys this week, so we'll see you in the next one.